Good morning. That's our signal to find your seats, settle in, come to the front. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The piano music reminds us to settle in, prepare for the beginning of our worship service. I'm going to check with you to make sure you got a handout this morning. I will call attention to the word cloud. And these are answers that we got from the first question from the stewardship team last week, which was, what is important to you about San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship? We got some wonderful responses, and the words that you gave us are included here. And what you will notice, I think bottom line, is that San Gabriel is important to you, and we are important to each other. This week, you will be getting a second question. Bill's kind of handing those out. If you'll write down a few thoughts and then put it in the offering basket when it comes by. We would love to see what your responses are to how you feel supported or how you perceive that we support each other in this place. I will also call attention, get out the vote if you want to participate in something like that. There's a box at the back of the room. Take a look at that. And there's a new facilities team being formed. Talk to Lou Sneed if that sounds like something that is calling to you. As we begin our service, I want to ring the bowl. And I think sometimes when I'm sitting out there, I'm always wondering, oh, are they going to be able to do it? Is it going to be that gong or that clank, or it's not going to make any noise? It's symbolic, okay? I welcome you to San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whether you're here in the sanctuary, whether you're at home watching us, we're glad you're here. My name is Molly Hornbuckle. I have served this congregation as president and am currently serving as your stewardship team chair. Bill and I have been members since 2014. In addition to serving as the lay leader, I am also the person who's going to be asking you for money, gently, supporting our place here. San Gabriel is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and there are over 1,000 congregations of Unitarian Universalists in the United States. We are all working together for a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. Sustaining each other here in community is the first step toward that long road of important work.
Good morning. I'm Eric Hepburn. My pronouns are he, him. I am the pulpiteer and spiritual leader of this community. And I'd like to especially welcome any guests that we have today. If this is your first time or your fifth time here, thank you for coming. I'm going to apologize in advance, mostly out of humor, but you've shown up to NPR during Pledge Month. Now, I know that some of you have had that experience where you turn on NPR in the morning and that you hear the pledge drive and think, I am not going to hear what I want to hear this morning. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to work real hard, as are my colleagues, to make sure that there's some spiritual bread mixed in with all of this necessary stuff that we're doing. So you guests can let me know whether I hit the mark enough that you want to come back next week or not. My email address is minister@sangabrieluu.org. So if you are new, if you're visiting, I hope you'll stay after the service for conversation, and I humbly request that you fill out a visitor card in the seat back pocket in front of you so that I and our welcoming team can learn more about what brought you here this morning and how San Gabriel can support your spiritual journey. Please know that whoever you are, wherever you are from, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Let us greet this day in song. Our opening hymn is For All That Is Our Life, which is number 128 in the gray hymnal. Lyrics will be projected. Please rise in body and spirit as you're able. We will be singing all 4 verses. Ooh, that's fun. That's fun when the 4th lyric in the book and the one on the screen are different. In case any of y'all were wondering, I seem to feel something odd in the air there for a moment, like we were stumbling together. Well, amen, we were stumbling together, and we will do it in more serious and important ways than that, I am sure, if we're doing our work together. As we light our chalice, we create sacred space together. I call you into this time of connection with the words of Stephen Jenkinson. Each of us is incalculably, inextinguishably obligated to life for our life. This is a debt that we cannot and should not be able to repay. It will always be so.
Our affirmation is our expression of our covenant with each other. Please read with me. The doctrine of this church is love. The quest of truth is its sacrament. Service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Here, thus, we do covenant with each other. We promise to do together. And Karina is here with the Wonder Box.
Good morning, everyone. We have wondering minds, and we help each other learn and grow. I was excited to see so many people in our adult religious education class with Lou Sneed leading this morning. But at this moment in the service, we help each other right here, right now, by sharing our guesses as to what might be in this Wonder Box. Does anybody want to? There's a little bit of a clue there. What might be in here? Did I hear a book? A book? Cards?
Lots of money.
Lots of money. That would be very on theme.
Pledge card.
Pledge card, right? Yes, exactly. Okay, you all are close. You're very close. It's Hello Kitty. No. It is a set of thank you cards. Do people remember these? They're kind of out of vogue. I don't know if we're doing them that much anymore. What does that make you think of, a thank you card? Gratitude? Appreciation? Anything else? Recognition. Well, the story I'm sharing with you today isn't a story, it's a prayer. It is based on the Thanksgiving address, which is an ancient message of peace and appreciation of Mother Earth and all her inhabitants. These words of thanks come to us from the Native Americans known as the Haudenosaunee, also known as the Iroquois or Six Nations of Mohawk, Oneida, Cayuga, Onondaga, Seneca, and Tuscarora. And the people of the Six Nations are from upstate New York in Canada, and these words are still spoken at their ceremonial and governmental gatherings. So let's take a listen.
Giving Thanks, a Native American Good Morning Message. Written by Chief Jake Swamp and illustrated by Erwin Printip, Jr. Published by Scholastic Books. To be a human being is an honor, and we offer thanksgiving for all the gifts of life. Mother Earth, we thank you for giving us everything we need. Thank you, deep blue waters around Mother Earth, for you are the force that takes thirst away from all living things. We give thanks to green grasses that feel so good against our bare feet, for the cool beauty you bring to Mother Earth's floor. Thank you, good foods from Mother Earth, our life sustainers, for making us happy when we are hungry. Fruits and berries, we thank you for your color and sweetness. We are all thankful to good medicine herbs for healing us when we are sick. Thank you, all the animals in the world, for keeping our precious forests clean. All the trees in the world, we are thankful for the shade and warmth you bring us. Thank you, all the birds in the world, for singing your beautiful songs for all to enjoy. We give thanks to you, gentle four winds, for bringing clean air for us to breathe from the four directions. Thank you, Grandfather Thunder Beings, for bringing rains to help all living things grow. Elder Brother Sun, we send thanks for shining your light and warming Mother Earth. Thank you, Grandmother Moon, for growing full every month to light the darkness for children and sparkling waters. We give you thanks, twinkling stars, for making the night sky so beautiful and for sprinkling morning dewdrops on the plants. Spirit protectors of our past and present, we thank you for showing us ways to live in peace and harmony with one another. And most of all, thank you, Great Spirit, for giving us all these wonderful gifts so we will be happy and healthy every day and every night. The end.
Haudenosaunee children are taught this prayer to greet the world each morning by saying thank you to all living things. And they learn that according to their native tradition, people everywhere are embraced as family. And I believe Eric will speak further today about our connections to one another and to all life.
For better or worse, I decided it was a stool day today. So, it was just announced a couple weeks ago that I'm here. And we'd been working on it for a few months prior to that, so I knew that I was going to be here early in the stewardship process. And once that became clear, I knew what story I wanted to share with you all this morning. It's a story, raise your hand if you've been doing UUism for a long time, to the point where the repetition of the interconnected web of all beings starts to sound a little trite. Like, not trite, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you hear it and you intellectually know it, but sometimes it fails to reach down and touch something deeper within us that makes us not just acknowledge the intellectual reality of our interconnectedness, but to feel that connectedness to each other and to the broader world. And what I want to share with you today, the story I want to share with you, did that for me. And in trying to figure out how to share it, I ran across a term, shakabuku. Now, I don't know if any of you are from my generation and watched the movie Grosse Pointe Blank that popularized that phrase in 1997. But the phrase shakabuku actually comes from 13th century Japanese Buddhist practitioner Nichiren. And shakabuku is described as a swift spiritual kick to the head that alters your reality forever. A swift spiritual kick to the head that alters your reality forever. In preparation for this swift spiritual kick to the head, which I hope to deliver successfully to you this morning, I'm going to plant a few seeds. One is, I'm hoping to invite you today to struggle with the word obligation. Now, I'm going to suspect, sharing as much culture as we do, living in this place and time, that like me, many of you think of obligations as things to be run for or avoided first, and embraced maybe second, third, or fourth. I think that this way of thinking about obligations is pretty normalized because I think we've been exposed to a lot of unwise pseudo-obligations. That word has been wielded against us by people who wanted us to do things the way they wanted them. And I'm hoping this story will help shine a different light on that word. I hope that it will invite you to think of obligation and indebtedness not as something that's a shackle to your freedom, but something that might be an invitation to fulfill your sacred duty to life for your life. Now, the story I'm going to tell comes from Martin Prechtel in his book, Long Life, Honey in the Heart. There are two things that you should know about Martin before I tell this story, just so that there's some context, because we're going to start kind of in the middle toward the end, and then we're going to listen to some of his words and words of his teachers. But he's a half Native American man born in New Mexico, but he was adopted into and spent the middle part of his life living in a Mayan village in Guatemala. And when our story begins, he had just completed being the chief of the initiation of the adolescents in the village, which is a year-long process in that culture. And it's a process that inevitably impoverishes the person who's in charge of it. So they have to host feasts, they have to do this. And so along the way of doing this work for the village and doing this work to initiate the youth of the village, he was broke. And, 8 months into the 12-month process, he had to go to the older elders in the village and beg for money to make the ritual happen. And after the ritual was over, it ended up that he had some paintings from decades before, and suddenly and unexpectedly, there was a big demand for his paintings. And within a couple weeks of him finishing his duty, he was not just flush again, but he had more money than he'd ever had since he lived in the Mayan village. And that's where our story begins. But there are two words I want to put on your radar too, so they don't sound confusing. The first one is Asesai, and Asesai is the name of his teaching elder. So when I say Asesai, I'm talking about a person, and this person was Martin's teacher. The other one is a Mayan word that doesn't have a translation, but it means mutual indebtedness. So it's a lot like the principle of interconnectedness. Mutual indebtedness, and the word is ta'ang slema. Ta'ang slema is how you pronounce it. So in Martin's words, I had enough money now to pay off my debts with plenty left to live on. I too hadn't forgotten all the ex-chiefs and their wives and chieftesses who had stepped in to help me when I had been economically flattened. I decided to pay them back first with my new money. I'd give them a little extra to show my appreciation for them having come to my rescue. I went from house to house during the day when most of the men were still out in the fields or out by the lake, leaving money with a younger daughter or a son-in-law. By the time I reached the 7th hut, one of the old hierarchy ladies who had loaned me about a month's wages was actually home. I began in flowery speech in the tone of a chief to express to her my great appreciation for the loan, but was interrupted by her bitter scolding, and then pushed bodily out of her house and chased from her compound into the street by her and all her livid female relatives, who chattered hateful insults as they did so. Some of the women in the other huts got wind of what was happening, and within 2 minutes, a rain of pebbles and wood was whistling past my ears, and I had to run to dodge them. Perplexed by the inexplicable sudden anger and humiliation of my assailants. About then, another group of old ladies returning from the market, all of whom who had graciously loaned me money and goods during my time of need, joined the first group, continuing to chase me down the street, kicking at me, slapping their hands, and throwing whatever they could. Normally noble and kind women, they turned into a crazed, cheerful mob of screaming, rock-tossing lunatics. Running now in earnest, they came at me like a herd of enraged, tusk-gnashing peccaries. I ran all the way to the bottom of the village, turned the corner, and ducked into my elder's hut. And luckily for me, Asesai was at home. Observing the sanctuary of his house, the yelling women didn't enter, though it seemed they might invade at any minute, as they continued to yell angry threats at me from without. "Oh, what did you do to these poor women, brother parent?" Asesai asked me, scowling, almost ready to smile. I've done nothing, brother parent. I was simply going house to house, returning the money I had to borrow from them to complete the initiation ritual. Plus, and I was roundly interrupted by old Asisai himself, who began chewing me out in the same tone as the ladies. Everyone joined in. The resolute nature of the onslaught was impossible to counter for its fierce loudness and sheer numbers. Bewildered and unwilling to fight, I hung my head and covered it with my arms. Finally, Asisai silenced everyone. He turned and addressed me, lifting my head. What's wrong with you anyway? Don't you want to be one of us? All of a sudden, you want to be alone again, an orphan. Almost crying, his eyebrows brushing the air, a very indignant old Asisai, my loyal friend and advisor, went on to explain. All the others looked on quietly, listening to his words, which I shall never forget. Yesterday, and the days before when you came here, an orphan, huddled against the cold dawn, we saw your face and sat you with us at the mouth of the fire. Now you push us away. You refuse us. Shamelessly, you pretend to forget us. Why are you doing this? Ta'ang slima, mutual indebtedness, mutual ensparkedness. Everything comes into this earth hungry and interdependent on all other things, animal, people, the past and the future, so they can eat and be warm and not be lonely and survive. I know you know this, but why do you push it all away now? We don't have a word for that kind of death, the isolation of not belonging to life at all. You see, every young man's chief, every initiator, every first grandchild chief like you has to watch his money dwindle away, has to watch the corn in his granaries empty to the bare ground until even the mice and crickets move out. He has to watch the people in his compound holding their tongues and keeping their worried eyes averted, waiting quietly. His relatives are terrified of starving and losing prestige, but they say nothing for fear of ruining the initiation of the village by complaining. The initiation, which is bigger than any one of us, upon which the whole village survives by bringing us rain and food and more children. The young chief you've been watches and wrestles with his imminent poverty and his doubts, keeping focused on the bigger needs of the village, while the patient people and the women in his own compound show their honor for him by not complaining. Your initiation into an adult begins with this sacrifice, which you know full well and have done very admirably. The crowd, somewhat mollified now, nodded and hummed in agreement, though some threw very hot tears rolling down their faces. Then Asisai gathered himself together and to continue. Every year, as the young initiates struggle and pull and gasp for air, as their hides loosen and their loads grow heavier, as they ripen their desire into seeds for food and ripen our seeds for planting, the chief further ripens his own initiated soul into a well-rooted, strong tree to which the youth can tether their hearts as they thrash in the painful and stormy changes they must go through. The young initiates must learn to stop being those who are fed and become the feeders of the village. That's why we say to them, they must cease suckling the village breast and begin to be the breast. The chiefs like you are chosen because they know how to be milk. They know how to give away to the point of having nothing. That is why a man and a woman always serve together, each understanding and in agreement with the fact that they will be economically leveled by the challenge of bringing the youth to fruition. This is the initiation of the chiefs. At this point, the village men and women who served as chiefs and are already elders come secretly to fill the initiation courtyard to the top with meat and corn and tomatoes and chili and firewood and money. The young chiefs, in the interest of the village, must swallow their pride and accept this wealth. That is why, in our language, we call our wealth our poverty. True wealth lies in being loved enough for giving, for being humble enough to be filled by the older people in the village, and by being smart enough to know it must all go to the youth's fruition. It also means being old enough and mature enough to know that all you get to keep in this village life that won't rot away or be eaten by insects is the prestige the village accords you for having the caring and courage to be flattened economically in order to lead the flowers and sprouts, the youth, back into life. That is what a true warrior, a true village man, a true chief does, and he is remembered for it. Not for obtaining what he wants, or hoarding, or being secure, not for being a good businessman or able to plunder the neighboring peoples, but for being willing to be wounded, being willing to fail and to live insecurely so that others can live, so that the village can survive beyond you and your moment. Always the spirits, the gods, the saints, the many, and the one will come through the people to help you. And when you learn to trust this, you learn how all true survival relies on this ta'ang this mutual indebtedness. And then you have become something of an adult. By hoarding without distributing, you kill the village. So you must be made to distribute. The regular man and woman go with their pride to mound up corn and firewood, wealth and clothing to warm and feed their children. The extraordinary man and woman distribute all they have to feed the village as if it were their own family. So here you are, having had everything you exhausted, replaced 100 times more than you expected by the good graces of the spirits, having gods and saints and manys and ones, and you go around trying to give back what fed you in your time of need? That's no good, you see? That's no good. Not that you don't owe us, because you do, but because you must remain in our debt. Keep the hole open, the wound unhealed, to be a fully initiated chief. You have to be indebted to as many elders as possible to be a part of our village. The knowledge that every animal, plant, person, wind, and season is indebted to the fruit of everything else is an adult knowledge. To get out of debt means you don't want to be part of life, and you don't want to grow into an adult. Initiated youth are only half cooked. They make babies, feed families, and struggle for air. But a further initiated man or woman becomes struck by spiritual lightning. Their tree full of honey, cracked open by the sharp tooth of the needs of the village, and then the honey in their hearts can run freely into the greater village heart. When you owe every chief in the village and do not pay it back, it means that every chief in the village has conspired to be closer to you than to a blood relative. In this way, he and his wife feel perfectly comfortable calling on you again in the future to serve the village heart in some deeper sacred position, having obligated you to do so by your debt to them. They too were put deep into debt by the chiefs that came before them and before you were born. You can only properly buy your way out of village indebtedness by more service, which alleviates the initial debt but puts you deeper and deeper in debt with the village itself and to other heavier chiefs and spirits. The wisdom is to get so entangled in the debt of this spiritual type that no normal human can possibly remember who owes whom, what, or how much. In business dealings, we keep close tabs on all exchanges, but in sacred dealings, we think just like nature, where all is entangled and deliciously confused, complex, dedicated to making the earth flower in a bigger plan of spirit beyond our mind's understanding. So here you are, trying to ruin the system by returning what you owe to the elders, which just says to them, I want out. I don't want to be obligated to you. I don't want to be in debt to you. Don't forget that the new chiefs will soon be economically flattened. Because the spirits have rewarded you for your service, you will now have the means to fatten their ceremonies, as the old ones did for you. Then these new chiefs will become hopelessly obligated to you. And when you get appointed to another position and need sacred helpers, you can feel free to call on them, as we want to feel free to call upon you to help us again in the future. Be one of us, hopelessly indebted to us, as we are to everything else, and we to you, each to the other. Do not buy your way back into being a cold little orphan with a big pile of money, unindebted but friendless. Please, the sun's eyes are bees that weep honey and sweetness. The honey in our hearts comes from the tears of village indebtedness to one another and everything else. The women had calmed down and were weeping and smiling now. Turning to me with their hands outstretched, their palms up, showing me their corn-grinding calluses, they beseeched me not to kill their lives with my arrogance and modern independence. With tears streaming down my face, I fell into the little bench with the dog's head carved into it and quietly expressed my understanding. Laughing and relieved, all of us were filled with hope and a good feeling of belonging to each other. They hadn't thrown me away. They had forced me to be their friend and their relative by chasing me down the road. Finally, I understood something that had made the scary, bitter storms of my life turn to honey in my heart. And in that instant, I became a true village man. Pretty sure the first time I listened to that, I had to stop and listen to it 3 times. Luckily, there'll be a video on YouTube if you find yourself in the same precarious situation. I suspect, like many of you, we struggle in this time, in this day, in this moment with feelings of loneliness. And I wonder if loneliness isn't the habit of individualism. When we convince ourselves of our singularity, of our separateness, we create the cause of that loneliness. And intellectually, we can think about this quite easily, right? I mean, like, we all know, like, we all had parents, even those of us who had ones that were hard. We all had teachers, even though many of us had some teachers we wish we hadn't had. But somewhere along the way, I'm suspecting if you're sitting here with me today, you had some people who loved you pretty good. Some people who taught you what kind of person you wanted to grow up to be. You can't repay that debt. What arrogance. But isn't that what we're taught in this culture? Oh, I don't owe nobody nothing. I don't owe nobody no thing. We say it like a mantra. We say it like it is something worthy of an elder saying, when it is worthy of nothing more than a teenager who needs to grow up. So, maybe we should stop putting old teenagers on pedestals when they say silly things like, I don't owe nobody nothing. I'm a self-made man. I'm a self-made woman. I did it all by myself with me and my bootstraps. Now, I know you laugh, and it sounds like I'm making fun of some people that you'd like to make fun of, but I'm in that boat, and so are you. So let's also be honest with ourselves that one of the ways that we escape from responsibility for growing into the elders that this world needs is by locating our own faults in other people instead of locating them in ourselves. Because in ourselves is where we have to do the work, folks. And that's why we're here. We're going to talk about this more. In 2 weeks, we're going to do a sermon, Why Church? Why do we do this? Why do you keep showing up here? What's it about? This is a bit of an intro to that. But the truth is, we're so addicted to hope because our scientific reductionism has convinced us that faith is folly. That the idea of karma couldn't possibly be true. That living right and doing right results in just reward. I understand the cynicism. I've been a practitioner of it myself. But in this time of stewardship, I'd like you to just put the idea, that karmic idea, on your dinner table. Think about it. Talk about it with your family. I think one of the reasons we think that karma isn't a real thing is because we live in a culture, I don't know of any other better way to say this, we live in a culture that has a lot of wealth pornography. Do you know what I mean by wealth pornography? And a lot of us have believed that that giant house or that yacht or that whatever, that giant collection of shoes, different people roll different ways, whatever it is, that is somehow success and that it ought to be emulated. I think it's just evidence of people who were allowed to get old without growing up. The idea of owning a yacht when there are unhoused among us causes the bile to rise up in my belly a little bit. Well, I hadn't written a proper ending, so I think we'll leave it there. Now is the time when we prepare to give each other the gift of attention as we share joys and gratitudes, concerns and sorrows with one another. Now is a time when you can practice deep indebtedness with your spiritual burden that you walked in here with today. Because giving someone the gift of attention when they need it is a debt that can't be repaid. I'm going to tell you something else. In this culture that we live in, we're a lot more comfortable accepting those burdens than handing them out. And so if you showed up this morning with a burden on your heart that you planned to keep locked away, I want to encourage you to share it. Because this is the way that we build real communities. This is the antidote to loneliness. It is, as Brené Brown would say, an act of deep vulnerability. Please join in singing The Fire of Commitment, number 128 from the Teal Hymnal, Rise in Body and Spirit as You Are Able. We will sing the first and third verses.
Into faith and free from fear.
I bring you now a stewardship announcement on behalf of the entire team. We hoped you received this week the mailing from us about our pledge drive along with a pledge card. If you did not, there's extras in the back. John Shaw and I will be around to answer questions as well. If you were with us last week, you know that we spent a moment wondering about the first question that we are asking as we look at our pledge drive 24-25. The question was, what is important to you about San Gabriel? We spent some time thinking about that. This week, the question that's on your card, that I hope you'll think about, how do you feel supported? How do you think we support each other? And I in passing these out, I kind of gave it to the members, so those of you that are new, I didn't ask you to figure out something that there's no way you could possibly know. But in looking at the words on the handout, you can see we got a lot of comments about this, and our question this week is, how does this fellowship support its members and friends? Take a moment to write the reflection. Put the card in the basket as it goes by, and we're here to have Lou Sneed come and share his answer to this question.
That means me. So, good morning, San Gabriel UU Fellowship. My name is Lou Sneed. I know most of you here, and I suspect that you know me. And I hope you realize that sometime, if you're a part of a volunteer organization, you will be asked to do something you would rather not do. Case in point is today, when Molly asked me to talk about stewardship. Please understand, I spent 40 years as a minister asking congregations to give the church money. That seemed awful self-serving through those years to be doing that. But I hope you all know it takes money in addition to time and talents to support the work of any congregation. And then Molly enticed me by saying, you don't have to talk about money. And I said, I'll do it with that understanding. So what I want to do this morning is I just want to take a moment to share with you, what I understand about this old churchy idea called stewardship, which really means taking care of something that's really valuable and means a lot to you, and managing it and taking care of it well. What I want to share with you is something that I found is as important in my life as my wife, who I love dearly, and my family that we all, Michelle and I, take great joy in and very proud of. But that thing that is way up there among those things that I value most in life is this congregation, all of you. Michelle, 11 years ago, suggested when I thought about retirement that we should move to Georgetown from Austin. And I thought I was being asked to move into a spiritual and political wasteland that I would not fit in at all. And then we discovered this little congregation. And what we have found here is a spiritual home. So when I was asked about this by Molly to share some of you what's important to me and to Michelle, I just sat down and I made a little note. And here are the little points I wrote. We found here a community of spiritual soulmates who welcome and accept us where we are at this point in our spiritual journey and accepts other people as well. A gathering of friends where I feel that I really belong and I share a sense of camaraderie with all of you in terms of the common values that I believe are essential to building a just, peaceful, and compassionate world. All of you are a source of encouragement and hope when I get depressed, and I do get depressed, about the shape of democracy in America, about the climate change crisis that many people seem to deny or ignore, the preponderance of economic and racial injustices that seem to be occurring around us. And when I start to feel that this country is morally and politically becoming bankrupt. And I find here a fellowship of open-minded and open-hearted people who are doing all that we can to promote social justice in our community and our nation and our world, try to be as inclusive as we can of other people as they struggle with life, and trying to counterbalance all of this stuff where people are living in a lot of fear and with a lot of resentments. And I still think that this is an amazing group of folks here in this community called Georgetown who are generous, who exhibit good humor, who have a positive regard for all the social misfits and those who are alienated from traditional churches simply because of who they are, what they believe, or who they may choose to love. In short, that's why I'm grateful for this congregation. That's why I'm standing in front of you today. And in the spirit of stewardship and taking care of something that's deeply important and valuable to us, that's why Michelle and I give of our time, our talents, and our financial resources. It's vital to us. It's a blessing. And I'm hoping that if this congregation matters to you to some degree, that you too are willing and want, in the spirit of thanksgiving and love, to support the work of this church as we try to make the world better together than it would otherwise be.
Thank you, Lou. We take an offering each week to sustain this place that we call home, where we find friendship, open hearts, open minds, and to support the work of our fellowship. If this is your first time here, please feel free to let the basket pass you by. Your presence is a gift, and we thank you for coming. If you filled out a visitor card, please put it in the plate. If you have your card or your pledge card, you may put those in there as well. John will be collecting those. For our offertory music, Joe and Jackie are bringing us Rainbow Connection, Paul Williams and Kenneth Asher. We will now gratefully receive your offering, and we thank you.
We close our sacred time together when we extinguish our chalice. I offer you these words by Martine Prechtel as a benediction. If we respond by ignoring the spiritual debt that we create just by living, then that debt will come back to bite us hard. Before we fully close out our service, I want to invite Karina Whitaker up for a special announcement.
This announcement will come out in the messenger, and I'm not supposed to be crying already next week, but Eric and I decided I should share this from the pulpit as well. After much deliberation and thought over the past year, I have decided my time as your DRE, as your Director of Religious Education, is coming to a close. I will remain with you to the end of June and plan to organize our affairs well so that you will be in good shape when I leave. This was an incredibly difficult decision for me. The past 7 years that we have journeyed together have been incredibly meaningful. In many ways, it is painful for me to see that journey come to an end. I will always cherish the relationships and friendships I have made here. We have been through a lot together. And I will never forget the support and trust you gave me as your DRE. And I am forever changed for the better through the experiences of building a beloved community with you. Please know that I made this decision some time ago. I've been contemplating it for a while, and it's not because of Eric's arrival. We want to be very clear about that. I've known Eric for a long time. I have every confidence your partnership with him will be a fruitful one, and I remain very optimistic about San Gabriel's future as a liberal and liberating faith community in Georgetown and within our larger association. If you were asking yourself, why now? The answer to that is complex. One reason is that my personal family circumstances have changed. Another is that I definitely feel the need for some rest and renewal. And lastly, there is no denying that we have seen a marked decrease in the number of children participating in religious education. And I believe that with my departure, San Gabriel will be able to better support programming and leadership that is responsive to where the congregation is right now, and then create new ways to meet future needs. So if you have ideas regarding that, please let Eric or I know, whether for adults or children. Eric knows that how crucial faith development is to the church's mission, and he looks forward to your ideas and energy. And I look forward to being with you every Sunday between now and June 30th. Like I said, I want this to go as smoothly as possible, and I hope to leave church leadership with resources and information for a good volunteer-led religious education program. There are several trained, loving volunteer teachers and helpers in the congregation who are able to carry this work forward, and they need all of you to help them in that. I am also confident that our longtime childcare provider, Hush Childers, will also be an incredible support to you all. So many, many thanks again. I'm obviously very emotional about this, and I'm available to talk after the service if you would like. Thank you.
Despite the sadness, an appropriate announcement for a day where we're acknowledging unrepayable debts, like the ones that San Gabriel and you all and I owe to Karina.
She cried on my script. You're all invited to join us for coffee and conversation right around the corner. Feel free to get up during the postlude music, and let's enjoy our fellowship with each other in the spirit of gratitude and love that unites us.